This is the Extra Point Podcast from Arizona's Family.
Well, an emergency edition here of the Extra Point Podcast. The vote for the Coyotes' new arena in Tempe does not go the Coyotes' way. It's not going to happen. So where do we go from here? Let's bring in Leah and Petey from PHNX. Just got done with their show talking about this, and man, it was kind of a sad one to listen to. Joining us here on Arizona's Family, the Extra Point. So guys, where do the Coyotes go from here?
Well, this is hard, Mark, because this is rarefied air for this Coyotes organization. They've been here before when things didn't go their way and there was always another plan. Right now, I think the organization was convinced that this vote was going to go through and this team was going to be moving to the Tempe Entertainment District. I'm not sure what plan B is, but this time it just feels different. One thing to keep in mind is there's not a lot of runway for this team to move for next season. I mean, that's a short time frame to find a new owner, a new building, ticket groups, and get this team out. So for the foreseeable future, let's hope they stay at Mullet Arena long enough to find plan B.
Leah, as we take a look at kind of the voters in way, I mean, I was just stunned the way it swung and the percentages that were a no vote. Why, as you've been able to kind of wrap your head around it here, why do you think it went against the Coyotes and this wasn't a yes vote from Tempe voters?
I was also stunned. What we said on our show is the Tempe first campaign, which was the no campaign. The second this went to public referendum, they were out there spreading their word. A lot of it, unfortunately, misinformation. But once you get that in someone's heads, it's really hard to change their mind. And I think they were just the louder voice. And unfortunately, the Coyotes, their efforts couldn't match that. And a lot of the reasons we've seen online tonight for people voting no were unfortunately based in misinformation. And it's just really unfortunate how things shook out.
Was this a referendum at all against Alex Merrall?
I think so. And you have to, it's hard to separate him from the organization. And unfortunately, some of the things that went on in Glendale and some of his business dealings there came back to haunt him, whether they were manufactured or made bigger than they actually were. Yeah, I do think some of that played into this. But like Leah said, some of the information that was out there just wasn't true. And unfortunately, I love the process and I'm glad people voted and I'm glad there was a turnout for this vote and people should have a voice. But I hope that they base those votes on reality and facts. And unfortunately, from what we're seeing, people on Twitter saying why they responded and voted the way they did were for reasons that just weren't true, that they didn't want to pay their tax dollars to build a billionaire building. And that wasn't the case. And so it's unfortunate. But I do agree with you. Some of that history could have come back to haunt them.
Is this completely dead? Is there another avenue to build on that site in your estimation?
I believe it's dead.
Yeah, we heard from former mayor of Tempe and some other people at the Tempe City Council. There is no plans to move ahead with anything on this dump site. Matter of fact, former Mayor Giuliano said that he will be dead before anything happens to that dump site. Again, part of the misnomer of what happened here, there is no plan B for the city of Tempe. This is still going to be a toxic waste dump today, tomorrow, next week, next month, next year. There is no saving grace, someone coming in to build parks for kids at this location. It's still going to be a dump.
So if we're looking at the Coyotes' nails in their coffin here as far as leaving town, how many nails are in the coffin at this point, and how many to go to seal their fate of going to Houston or Kansas City or Quebec?
Mark, I've been here a long time. I've seen this team on their way to Portland, Seattle, Houston before. Until the moving trucks come in, I'm going to believe there's another option. I don't know what plan B is. I know the league is about at the end of their rope. I mean, they've given this ownership, the Board of Governors has given this city a lot of opportunities to make this right. The runway's short and they're running out of time here. They need to have a plan B quickly if this team is going to stay in the Valley.
What do we make of Gary Bettman's statement tonight from the NHL?
Well, what we heard from Craig Morgan, who's our third co-host here on PHNX Coyotes, who was actually texting with the commissioner tonight, he was shocked. He was stunned. He was out in Tempe in April, attending Tempe Wins events. And I think his statement didn't say a lot, but it also said a lot at the same time. And both his statement and the Coyotes statement both said the NHL and the Coyotes will explore options over the coming weeks. Kind of leaves a lot up in the air, a lot still to be determined, but I do think that there was a lot of shock on all sides.
And the first time that we haven't heard from the commissioner where he said, we're committed to Arizona. We're committed to the Coyotes staying in the Valley. Those words were missing from his statement for the first time in a long time, and that should be a concern.
Right. And, I mean, if we look at the reaction out there, I mean, we saw Clayton Keller tweet kind of a sad face here. I know you guys, your livelihood is to cover the Coyotes, so I mean, how do you guys feel about it? Is this trending in a direction where we won't have hockey here in Arizona?
We're not feeling great.
Yeah, we were just talking, how well do we know baseball? We were just discussing that as we were watching the Diamondbacks play. Yeah, it's a big deal. You think about the players and you think about us, but there are so many people, and you know this, Mark, so many people involved with making that engine run at the Arizona Coyotes. There's so many people that livelihoods and jobs and families depend on this. And those are the people we're concerned about tonight. And I hope that there's some way that somebody comes in and saves the day, and there's a knight in shining armor comes in and keeps the Coyotes in Arizona. I just hope it happens.
Is there another spot that they could potentially build an arena? I mean, I don't even know if I want to say this out loud. Is going back to Glendale even worth considering?
We talked about it. I said it too. I said, get the moving trucks and go back to your old office in Glendale and sign the 15-year lease. The concern there in Glendale is I don't think you can generate the revenue to have this team succeed long-term. So I don't think that's the location. But in the Valley, the answer is yes. I mean, there are people here that will support a team in this Valley. Now, where is that? Is it in Mesa? Is it in Scottsdale? Or is it downtown? It didn't work in the same building under two different owners in the past, but could this team survive downtown? I think the corporate dollars are there. I think the fan base is there. I'm not completely convinced that this is completely dead in the state of Arizona.
How many more years do you feel like they could play at Mullet Arena?
I think the max is 3. I know they've got 2 plus the option. I think that's it. I think that'll be it for the Board of Governors, the league. They need to have an option before then of a new home. And here's one thing. With the site in Tempe, there was a whole year that was going to go to remediation, and that was going to delay any shovels in the ground for construction. If by some miracle in the next 6 months, you can find a site in another location, whether it's Scottsdale, Mesa, or downtown, you can start building right away. You don't have to remediate land that was a dump. So that timeline doesn't change to 2 to 3 years if you can find plan B over the next 6 to 10 months.
All right. And as we wrap up here, as we look at on this date in Arizona sports history, how significant do you two think this date will be, 5, 10, 15 years from now?
I'm hoping its only significance is that we look back and say, wow, I'm glad that didn't work out because this better thing worked out instead. Tonight, I don't necessarily feel that way. I think it's going to be very significant.
Yeah, and you look at the benchmarks that this franchise has had from moving downtown to Glendale to Los Arcos and going through bankruptcy and going through the ownership of the league. There are so many benchmarks over the last 25 years. You were hoping this vote would bring stability to the franchise for the first time in 25 years. That didn't happen. I think this is a huge date for this franchise. I'm starting to be concerned for the first time in a long time that this may be the beginning of the end for the Coyotes.
Well, I can't thank you enough for your time on short notice here. Great job on the show, and thank you for the passion you put into Arizona sports.
Thanks,
Mark.
All right, have a good night, guys.
Thanks.
The Extra Point Podcast is a production of 3TV, CBS 5, and azfamily.com in Phoenix, Arizona.